this split second, your hands make all the difference. It was time for a grip to help them own the moment. Introducing Reverse Taper, technology to stabilize both hands for a more square putter face at impact. The most important split second in golf. Reverse Taper, only from Golf Pride. Respect the grip.
Welcome into the Wagyu Filet Show. I'm Bryson DeChambeau. He's Johnson Wagner. Let's not waste any time, Wags. You had one hell of a week. Looked like you had a ton of fun out there, and no more fun than on Sunday evening.
It was unbelievable, Brendon. I mean, the amount of support I got from the people, the fans at Pinehurst, they knew who I was. They were thanking me for stuff.
Oh, I witnessed it. I walked around with you for a while.
I'm totally in shock, and I kept telling people I wish you had liked watching me chunk skull and shank chip shots when I played competitively, because that's pretty much all I did. And man, it was such a great week. I got to walk with Tiger on Thursday, but then, I mean, everything I was doing at night was great. And to cap it off the way it happened Sunday, we were getting late into the show. Bryson decided to come to the live from desk. And I was standing out in the fairway. I was going to hit his shot off the root. And right before all this was happening, I was kind of protecting the root. There's these three young guys that had decided to stay and watch. And this guy on breakdown for somebody had two generators on back of a flatbed cart. And I was like, stop. And he drives right under the magnolia tree, ripping off like three huge limbs that didn't affect Bryson's backswing per se. Yeah. But it allowed me to just stand up cleanly underneath the tree. I mean, it was unbelievable. And then we got kind of pushed back because Bryson came to the set.
Okay.
And I thought I was going to get bumped completely from the show, which is fine. It's television. I mean, yeah. I would have preferred to not stand out there for 2 hours for nothing, but it's what happens. And then they're like, all right, we got like 6 minutes left. Set up the route and go straight to the bunker. And I was like, it's too dark back here. I'm going straight to the bunker, because the Jumbotron was lighting it up. And I mean, I didn't want to hit the windows of the clubhouse, right?
That would have been pretty good too if you'd hit one landed on the clubhouse. But
so I asked Andrew Bradley, who's out there with me, my field producer, and I said, hey, I'm happy to hit the shot in the dark, but if I break one of those windows on the clubhouse, is NBC Sports going to pay for it? And he laughed and got on the phone. I was like, seriously, are they going to pay for it if I break the window? And he came back and said, no, they wouldn't, but I think they were just messing with me. So I get up there, skull it over the green. I had no idea Bryson was coming. I guess Rich Lerner said during commercial break, he's like, Johnson's getting ready to go down there and hit the shot. You should go give him a lesson.
Well, I was going to ask you, did you have any idea that he was going to show up? Because it looked like you really didn't.
No, I had no idea. And so he was taking so long after his press conference. He came out on the green, was taking picture after picture. So I was like, I'm going to walk up there and maybe I can help get people off the green. And I just wanted to say congratulations, because it didn't at that point feel like we were going to do anything. And I was happy for him. So I got up there, sat on the green for 20 minutes while he was signing every single autograph. He was taking pictures with everybody that was out there, and they were all Pinehurst people or USGA people.
Yeah.
It was an incredible scene. Like, I mean, I'd never been on the 18th green of a major after all that stuff happened. I'm starting to now a little bit more often though, because I was waiting in the fairway to hit Xander's shot into 18 at the PGA. And anyway, so Bryson came over, and I said congrats, and once left, the green started clearing. But anyway, I get into the bunker, sculled over the green, so shocked to see him. My idea was, instead of him going to the desk, he needs to come out with a microphone and commentate my recreations of his shot. And okay. I was saying this to a couple of the ladies that work for NBC Sports, Courtney Holt and Alex Russell, and like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if Bryson came out? And I mean, he's big on YouTube. Like, I think he would have been into that. And they're like, that's a great idea, but we're going to take him to the desk. And so I think that maybe played a part in them asking him to come down there. But when he came, I was shocked. I was so nervous over that shot. And he basically just told me to chunk and run it. Then I hit it up there to that. And just like, I went for a full high five. I was jacked up, and he sat there and took it full strength. And give me that trophy, Bryson. And, but I did. I went back and had beers with him, which was cool.
Did he drink beers or did he have a couple protein shakes?
He had some chocolate milk, and he had his whole team back there, and there was probably 6 or 7 people from the USGA. There was a couple volunteers, and he went after he came to me, he went and signed autograph for kids that had been waiting for at least 45 minutes. And so I went down in there. It was me and Todd Lewis and Andrew Bradley, my field producer, and we had a couple beers. Bryson ended up having a glass of wine, had a bottle of Camus, and he came over. He came over and talked to me and Andrew and Todd for a bit, took a picture with us, and then we just got out of there. But it was a really cool scene. And as I'm doing that, I got invited to go over to the owner Bob Dedman's house for a celebratory beverage of the week. And in that time, I got invited to play number 2 on Monday. It was like the ending to my week just kept getting better and better. And that's why I told you yesterday, it's like, man, I can't think. I mean, winning on the PGA Tour was great, but I can't think of I've had a better week professionally from start to finish than this one.
Well, I was going to ask you that. That's exactly what you said to me, that this is by far the best week professionally I've ever had. I know, obviously, playing it's apples and oranges, right? But it really was. It was a cool, and I mean, it was kind of a fitting end because you'd had an awesome week, and then for everything that transpired Sunday evening was a fitting end to it.
Well, and I mean all the all the bad shots I've hit in these recreation things, all the duffs and shanks and skulls to end with. I mean, I hit it was like probably 18 inches away, and in front of the champ in the dark with the trophy there. I like the reaction from everybody at the live from desk. Brendon and Paul, they were stunned and shocked, and it was just funny that it worked that way. But Brendon, you had a great week too.
I
First
did.
time
Hang on. We can't leave this just yet. It's pretty fitting that you hit the best shot you've ever hit on any of these recreations in the dark. You couldn't see the flag. You didn't know where you were going, and you've got Bryson standing there right behind you. I mean, it is pretty fitting.
I said, so Steve Durstein is my catch camera guy, and he is the absolute best. And he, when we got down there, I was like, "Hey, Steve, where's the hole?" And he pointed over to a pillar that was 2 pillars away. He stood online and said, "It's right here." And then he moved his camera to that pillar so that I could aim right at him, and I knew basically where the line of the hole. So I did have somewhat of an idea of where it was.
Okay, not completely blind.
Man, if that ball had gone in, I think I may have spear tackled Bryson. and I mean, how I've felt about him. I played with him in the Houston Open, maybe his second year on tour, and he's not a bad guy. He's just kind of always looked out for Bryson. Maybe I would have considered him a touch selfish, but dude, I talked to Wee Man and a bunch of live caddies. I was flying from studio to Charlotte to get my car and drive over to
Yeah.
Pinehurst, and these guys were landing from Live Houston, and I told him I was going to do a walk and talk with him, and how's he been? And they were like, dude, this guy has changed in the last 6-8 months. He has changed completely. He's gracious. He's nice. He's helpful to everybody else. So I'm really impressed by the turnaround, because my last memory of him and why it was so sour in my mouth was when that video came out where someone lifted the rope for him and he went under and hit his head and freaked out. Like, that's who I thought he was. But I think he's really made an effort to change his reputation.
Yeah, I think he's come a long way. He's certainly matured when you watch him. I still think Bryson's weird. I think he's
Yes.
a weird dude. He's not everybody's cup of tea, but the way that he is acknowledging the crowd and how gracious he is with the crowd and how he's got the crowd to play on his side is awesome. I think he used to be weird and annoying. I think now he's just a little bit odd, but it's very, very easy to see how he's a guy that people can pull for now. I think maybe a year ago that wouldn't have been the case.
Yeah, I think even the PGA Championship was amazing. How many people were rooting for him there at Valhalla, and you and I on Saturday went out and walked. We walked the first 6-7 holes with that lead group.
Yeah.
It was him and Oberg, and I mean, remember when he walked up to that 6 tee and there's that huge grandstand left? The ovation that he got when he walked up, and Rory was in the group in front, or 2 groups in front on Saturday. The ovation Bryson got was comparable, if not greater than Rory's ovation. And that was the moment to me. I was like, man, these fans want him. They get it. He has endeared himself to them.
Well, I think the thing is he's authentic, and I mean, say what you want, Bryson is good for golf. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about it. Bryson's good for golf. He brings a different element. Again, maybe the weirdness. Maybe there's this guy that's just a little bit different. Guys want to see that. Guys want to see what's Bryson going to do next. It's kind of cool, and plus he wears his emotions on his sleeve. I know you like seeing that. He's chipping things in. He's fist pumping. He's getting the crowd going, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, when he chipped in on 18 at Valhalla, and it was a huge fist pump, and this whole week, and then he made the putt at Valhalla. I think people on TV watching that really were like, okay, I can get behind this guy. I mean, that's what made us
Yeah.
love Tiger Woods, was his willingness to show emotion. And here at the U.S. Open, it was just on full display. I want to hear about your week. You got the call late to fill in for someone on
Yeah.
SiriusXM radio. How was your experience? Radio calls so different, but being at a major. And by the way, uh, everybody that had an Amex card at the U.S. Open
Yeah.
got to put one of those little earpieces in, so they're walking the golf course, watching golf, and able to keep up with everything, because that SiriusXM coverage is amazing.
It really is. Honestly, if my week had been any better, I would have been Johnson Wagner. But I'm not complaining. No, you said it. I got the call late. I was actually in Kansas City for my son had a soccer tournament out there, and Taylor called me. Taylor Zazer, who is one of the big wigs with SiriusXM PGATour. Taylor asked me. He said, "Listen, is there any way that you could maybe come over to Pinehurst next week? John McGinnis is on baby watch. His wife is past due. They didn't know if John was going to be able to be there." Or how long he was going to be able to be there. It turned out that he was able to stay all week. But Taylor called me. I said, "Listen, I'm an hour and a half away, 2 hours away. No doubt I can be there." So I showed up Tuesday morning and got the pleasant surprise of being asked if I would stay all week as one of the analysts. And honestly, these guys have the best culture. I know you've did it at the PGA and at Augusta with them. They have such a cool team culture that Justin Ware, Jeremy Davis, Taylor, that they've all instilled. It was so much fun. There was 7 of us in a house. Everybody kind of convenes on the back porch every evening. You have a couple beers, you tell your war stories. I likened it to being back out on tour, and when you shared a house with guys. It was a whole lot of fun. And then I got the awesome surprise of getting a phone call from Taylor yesterday and asking if I wanted to go across to the Open Championship next month. So obviously I jumped at that, and I tell you what, man, it's about maybe 6 months ago. I was enjoying doing this, but I wasn't sure how much I was going to enjoy it. I'm absolutely loving everything on the media side of it, the broadcasting side of it. And, I can't thank those guys at SiriusXM enough for having the faith in me and making me part of their team.
Yeah, and Brendon, I know you've played a bunch of majors, like covering your first major from that perspective. Like, what did you learn? Like, what did you learn this week that you didn't know before about major championship golf?
The magnitude of it all, the size of everything. I think when you're playing, you're in your own little bubble. You kind of remove the outside noise as much as you possibly can. When you're on the outside, it's kind of cool to take a step back and look around and just see the size of everything from the production. Our little compound over there, which wasn't a little compound. I mean, it felt like hundreds of trucks everywhere and just people all over the place, and just to see what it actually entails to put on the production for one of these big tournaments is just unbelievable. And it really was cool. Like, I know you talked about it briefly there, where we got inside the ropes, just to see the crowd as well. Like, I think I probably didn't do a good enough job when I was playing of really acknowledging the crowd and taking all of that in. But when you take that step back, it's pretty cool to see it all.
Yeah, and the the crowd, the compound was, by the way, on course number 4, just left of number 10, and it took up an entire fairway. I playing with Tom Pashley and some guys at Pinehurst yesterday. I don't think course 4 is going to open up for like a month and a half.
Yeah.
So they've got a lot of work to do there to get. I think they use, maybe for parking, they use 4 or 5 of the holes on course 4. All right, and to speak on the crowd, I was walking with featured groups on Thursday with Tiger's group. It was Tigers, Zalatoris, and Fitzpatrick, and the Pinehurst crowds made me feel like I was in Scotland in the best of ways. The third hole, back left pin, can't go at it, even with a wedge or 9-iron. It's just not worth the risk. And all 3 players in my group hit it 20 feet, 25 feet right of the hole, and the crowd applauded. Like they knew that was a good shot. They respected the fact that guys weren't silly enough to take on that flag. I think the crowds at Pinehurst, I mean, it's called the cradle of American golf. It's been inland links, which I know is an oxymoron, can't be a links if it's not on a body of water, but it's really a great representation of American golf. And I just thought the venue really showed out.
Oh, without a doubt. I think everything was spot on. We're both proud now North Carolinians. I think it was really cool to see a knowledgeable crowd, which is often not the case with these tournaments. But just walking around listening to comments, you hear so much stupid shit typically in the crowd. Like everybody was spot on. They knew what they were watching. They knew how difficult that golf course was. And it was nice to see. And to that point, like, I think the USGA was spot on this week. I think they checked every box. And this is an organization that's come under a lot of scrutiny in recent times. Some of it justified, some of it maybe not. But I thought they were absolutely spot on with everything. I thought the course setup was very difficult but very fair, which has been their mantra from the start. So, I think huge kudos to those guys.
Yeah, they really did. Jeff Hall, I got the opportunity to spend some time with him, did 2 interviews with him, saw him setting up the golf course both Saturday and Sunday, and chatted with him out there. Jeff has been a longtime friend of my old coach and good friend Bobby Hines up in the New York area. So I've been aware of Jeff Hall, and I just think his whole goal with the setup of the golf course, that's what he's in charge of, was to never let it get across the line. He didn't want the USGA to be the story in a negative way. He wanted the venue to shine, and he wanted the players that played the best to be the story, and it truly was. And on that note, enough about how great we are, Brendon. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of this golf tournament.
Yeah,
I mean, that finish, I can't remember. And did you drive home and watch it? Did you get to watch it at home the last little bit? Because I know you were off air. At what time were you off air on?
I got off at 2 and I got out of there pretty quickly. So I was home by 4 o'clock. Actually, I walked into my house as Bryson was making that par putt on 8.
Okay, cool. So I'm sure you were listening. You were listening to the front 9.
I was. I listened to the front 9 and then essentially watched the back 9 on TV.
I just can't remember a back 9 or even a whole Sunday where I was more on edge. I mean, we all want Rory to win, right? I mean,
Yeah.
He hasn't won a major since the PGA Championship in 14 at Valhalla. He's had so many close calls, and look, he putted incredibly well this week. He drove it great. He was 3rd in driving accuracy and 2nd in distance. I mean, he was 1st in strokes gained off the tee. It was an absolute clinic. Putted well. It was hitting greens. I thought he showed a lot of discipline. I know you and I have talked about him being too aggressive, and can he win at a place like that because of his aggressiveness? And he was doing it. And, for me, I feel like things changed for him on 14T when he looked up and saw that 2-shot lead.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, at the beginning of the week, people were asking me, do you think Rory has a chance? And I said, no, for that reason. I said, there's no way that he can stay patient enough out there for 4 rounds. I was doubting it. He did. He played so well. And he attacked at the right spots. He was patient where he needed to be. And I think we were all heartbroken because the biggest story going into the week would have been if Rory McIlroy can break this major drought. And well, he was right on the edge of doing that. Unfortunately for Rory, the naysayers are going to pop out again now about Harry Diamond and Rory's relationship. And I have to agree. Like, You talked about looking up at the leaderboard on 14. That's fine, right?
Of course.
You're going to do that. The shot on 15, Wags, you can't do that. You can't hit it over the green there. And that was kind of the start of the downfall. If Rory hits something in the middle of the green on 15, two putts and gets away with par, Bryson three putts right behind him, then essentially that tournament's put to bed, right?
Yeah. I mean, he bogeyed 3 of his last 4 holes. I mean, it was, I don't remember a time. I mean, St. Andrews, obviously he was in the final group when Cam Smith won back in 22, and Cam Smith came out and took that from him. And Rory was out there taking it from Bryson. He was making birdies. He was making putts. And by the way, the bogey on 15 was fantastic. I mean, like over the green, up into the edge of that long stuff to be able to bump it up the hill. Like that was going to be where I went. Had Rory ended up winning, Bryson 3-putted, Rory hit that great shot. Cause I mean, he was staring double in the face when that ball went over the green up where it did. And, it just seemed like 16. Brendon, I played yesterday, and one of the guys I was playing with on 16 had that same putt for par. And the way the grain, where that was a brilliant pin because it was all into the grain towards the front of the green, and then about 2 feet past it was down grain. So his putt, it looked like it should go left to right. And yesterday, the same cups, the edge was so burnt out, and you could see the grain going towards the front of the green. Maybe he pulled it, but man, it was a putt that looked like it was inside left, and it probably went left with the amount of grain that it had. So I mean, but it was 2 feet 6 inches, man. I mean, I thought 2 feet 6 inches, and knowing that grain change is there, that was one of the most shocking things I've ever seen in major championship golf, was him missing that putt at that moment.
Yeah, I agree with that. And on top of it, how well he putted the ball all day. He had rolled it absolutely beautifully all day. His speed had been perfect. He'd made a bunch of 20, 25 footers. He'd made some difficult putts. So make a really, really tough putt on 13, the drivable hole down the hill there for birdie.
His first putt from over that green was incredible. The way he got it past the hole and left the uphill putt. Like I couldn't believe, because I mean, just another yard or two, it's gone off the front. Like his speed was good. Everything. I mean, keep going.
No, yeah, exactly that. His speed was good. Everything was good. I didn't see that. I think I flinched when he missed that putt on 16. I was just in absolute shock. Then he makes the good up and down on 17. 18, does he hit driver? Does he hit 3-wood? It's a hard fairway to hit. I know, again, this is the one where naysayers are going to jump in and say, hey, maybe Harry needed to be a little bit firmer. Maybe it needed to be a 3-wood. I mean, ultimately, the player is hitting the shots, though, right?
Yeah, they are. And that tee shot, like it had been a year or so since I played. It's an intimidating tee shot. It's a short hole. That bunker, which is not in play at all down the right-hand side, makes you inch left a little bit. But right is the miss off of that tee. There's less wiregrass. There's more fairway than you think. And to hit that drive was one thing. To get the lie he did behind that tuft of wiregrass was pretty unlucky. I mean, given the amount of fairways that he hit every day, I felt like that was just a sign that he got that lie after that tee shot. But he hit a good shot to leave it where he did, and I thought his chip was outstanding, except for the fact that he left it above the hole. I mean, his chip on 14 was brilliant. That was a nice par there, but that chip getting above the hole, I mean, it's 3 feet 9 inches. It was excellent under the gun. I thought his short game was really good all week, but just kind of maybe left himself the hardest 3 foot 9 inch putt he possibly could have on that green.
Yeah, I mean, once he got that ball above the hole, that was always going to be a really difficult one with the situation the way it was. I mean, essentially a 4-footer that he had to play a cup of breakout on the left, and just hit a little bit of a weak putt. And I mean, you could see Rory's face. I mean, that was a tough one, and this is one that's going to stick with him for a long, long time. And you know what? If he wasn't Rory McIlroy, who we all consider a generational talent, we still think he's going to win another major. If he was a lesser player, I would say that this would be someone that has no chance of winning a major after what transpired on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, and I was gonna go there with you and have that conversation. A lot of people after he missed that putt were that was kind of the narrative in the TV compound was that man, he's done. He's never gonna win another one. And I wouldn't say that. It wouldn't surprise me to see him come out and win at Troon. I mean, after the Masters in 2011 when he shot 80 on Sunday,
Yes.
to that point was the most disappointing thing in his career. He came out and won the very next major, his first major ever at Congressional. I think I liked what he put out on Instagram and said that he's going to take 3 weeks off and
Yeah.
he'll see everybody at the Scottish Open where he's defending. What do you make of him not doing media?
I was going to ask you that. I'll start. I understand. I I screwed up a lot of tournaments, never majors. I never was good enough to do that. I screwed up a lot of tournaments, and I understand why the last thing he wants to do is go and talk to somebody. But in saying that, I still feel like it's your obligation. It's no matter how heartbroken you are at that moment, I still feel like it's your obligation. Phil Mickelson did it. He doubled the last hole at Wingfoot. He manned up.
Vanderbilt.
He manned up, and yes, manned up and went and spoke to the media. Told them, "Hey, I'm such an idiot." Rory's going to lose a lot of fans by the fact that he didn't go and talk to the media. Um, so I understand, but I certainly don't agree. I think he should have gone there. He should have poured his heart out. I mean, whether you're standing there and bawling your eyes out, that would have made him a ton of fans. Um, I he should have gone and talked to somebody. I don't know if you feel the same way.
I do. I like you said. I understand why he didn't. I can't imagine how gut wrenching it was. Um, but I do feel like he should have. And he's been one that's talked about, hey, we're entertainers. It's why we get
Yeah.
paid so much. Well, part of it is win, lose, or draw. You got to come out and you got to speak. And that scene in the parking lot when Harry was putting the clubs in and Roy just gets in and drive away and his manager Sean was right there, and from what I understand, Sean was like, Rory, you have to do media, you have to go do something, and Harry said he's not doing it, he doesn't want to do it, he's not doing it, he's getting out of here, and apparently Sean and Harry got into it a little bit after that, but yeah, I mean, poor guy, he's been through a lot. I mean, both personally and with his role on the board and not on the board, and I hate Liv, and I want him back, and I just think he's under constant media scrutiny and he's generally given the benefit of the doubt, but man, it would have been great of him to go in there and be like, look, I'll be in here for a few questions, but I'm gutted. Clearly, I think it would have been big. And now we're gonna have to wait to the Scottish Open to hear. And I think he could have put a lot of things to bed had he gone in there for 5 minutes and answered a couple questions.
Yeah, the word is obligation, right? It's an obligation to your sponsors. You said it, they were entertainers, win, lose or draw. This is a guy that a couple months ago was seen singing Journey after they won a tournament in absolute jubilation, right? So there has to be a flip side to that, and you're again obligated to deal with that.
Well, let's get to two-time U.S. Open champ Bryson DeChambeau. Man, he only hit 5 fairways on Sunday. Brandel, lead analyst, Brandel Chambly, during the coverage for NBC, at one point when he kept missing fairways and getting good lies, he said he's walking up there expecting to have a bad lie, and he just he keeps finding 4-leaf clovers, which I thought was the best thing Brandel said all week on air. and and it was true. But it did. It finally came back to get him there on the back nine a little bit. He got some bad lies, but man, his shot. He bogeyed 12 because he was in that right stuff, and
Yeah.
that's when Rory simultaneously is birding 13, getting a 2-shot lead, and then Bryson stepping up and hitting that 3-wood onto the green on 13 was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen because he had been wild all day long, missing everything left, it seemed to me, and then to stand up and hit that shot and have an eagle putt from 25-ish feet, that was like, oh man, okay, this thing's not over yet. Look out for Bryson.
Well, how about you're getting ready to go and play the final round of the U.S. Open, and you crack your driver? So now
Right.
you're putting in a driver head that's not your favorite one, obviously, because you've been playing with your gamer. That can be a little bit unnerving, and I think it might have been, as you say, he only hit 5 fairways, and he'd actually driven the ball pretty good all week until then. But yeah, he did. We talked about it all week. There was going to be an element of luck with these native areas. There was always going to be an element of luck. I'm sure throughout the week, everybody had their share of good ones and bad ones. It did appear for the longest time that Bryson kept getting good ones. And then, yes, I think it finally did catch up with him on that back nine. But you know what? He hit some great shots. He hit some great shots to keep the pressure. I think obviously that birdie that he made on 13 was key. If you don't make birdie there, then all of a sudden, I think Rory has a 3-shot lead. That one was key. And yeah, the 3-wood that he hit where he stepped up there and hit it right onto the green was pretty awesome at the time.
Well, I have to say, we played from that exact tee box yesterday, and I hit the best drive of the day. I only hit 4 fairways. That was one of them. I mauled it up the right-hand side, and I was short of those bunkers after a little bit, short of the 2 right greenside bunkers after a little bit of a run out. So the 3-wood that he hit was just remarkable. I then chunked a chip. It landed on the false front, rolled into the left bunker, hit it on the green, and 2-putted for bogey. But I mean that green complex, and it raised a lot of eyebrows on Saturday with that front right hole location.
Yeah.
13 always to me, Brendon, was sort of this like benign little wedge hole. But I thought this was the first time in a U.S. Open where I thought that green really shined.
I did. I thought they were going to play it drivable to that front right flag that they used
They used
on Saturday. That one was one that may have sparked a little bit of a debate because guys would have hit driver through the back of the green, which would have left you absolutely no opportunity to go to that flag. So again, I think they were spot on. I walked with Brian Harmon in one of the practice rounds, and he putted down to that flag from just beyond the middle of the green, and he putted 4 balls off the green. So that was one where it I worried a little bit. I was thinking, hang on, if these guys are going to make a mess somewhere, this might be where it is. But they got it spot on again.
They did, and then so Bryson, going back to Sunday, Bryson on 15 hits a beautiful shot in there, just exactly how you're supposed to. And this is like the beauty of Bermuda grass greens, and what not only on the USGA officials, but like PGA Tour does it on a weekly basis when you have Bermuda greens, finding these awkward little grain changes around those cups. And Bryson missed that short putt on 15, which was shocking. He had been pretty rock steady, especially inside 5 feet. So that was a bit of a surprise there, and really kind of letting Rory off the hook as he's bogeying 16.
Yeah, when Bryson missed that putt, I thought that Rory had the tournament in the bag. He putted before Rory putted on 16. So I thought right then that Rory had the tournament in the bag. And then, well, obviously we know now Rory missed the short one on 16 and, well, then let Bryson back in it. But these things do happen in U.S. Opens. It's so difficult. Those greens, well, you were out there yesterday. Those greens got so crusty. They got so fast. It's a little unnerving when you put the putter behind the ball and the putter head just slides. It makes it just that much more difficult. And then, well, you add the U.S. Open pressure to it.
Bryson's tee shot approach into 17, I thought was remarkable because that green had been bouncing, and everybody, like Rory, pulled it in the bunker. There were so few people able to hit the proper shot landing where I thought Bryson got a little bit unlucky that it landed as soft as it did, because I mean that was the shot of the day into 17, at least from anybody in those last handful of groups. And then he hits it left on 18, and we had this 18 to me is a bit of a sad story because the tee box can't go any further back because it would push into the 16th fairway. The green can't go any further back because it would go into the clubhouse. I mean, it's a 450-yard par 4 that Gordon Sargent, I can't remember if it was Thursday or Friday, had 79 yards into that hole, and which was 1 yard further than Payne Stewart's third in 1999. What did you make of the 18th holes of the week? And do you before we get into Bryson on that hole, did you think were you as sad as I was that it was just reduced to a driver and a wedge for most of these guys?
Oh, 100%. I had this conversation with Taylor Zaza early on Thursday, and I was like, man, there's very little to complain about. I said the only thing that I wish was that 18 was a more difficult finishing hole. I think at one point was playing as the second easiest par 4 on the golf course. That was the only thing. But as you say, there's nowhere for them to move that tee box or the green. It's just it's what it is. It's one of those holes that maybe technology has kind of destroyed a little bit as far as a finishing hole. Yeah, a little bit disappointing. But yes, to get back to Bryson, I was surprised to see him hit driver there as well. He's obviously flushed a 3-wood back on 13. I thought we were going to see that 3-wood from him again and get something in the fairway there.
Yeah, and I mean, where he ended up on that route was like worst possible scenario. Rory's just made bogey, and then I mean, because I was thinking the same thing about 18. It was like, man, this is just going to be nothing finished with these guys flipping wedges. Is somebody going to take it on and make birdie? And to have both guys that have a chance to win in trouble, struggling for par, I was like, oh, well, I mean, hold on now. It's been quite entertaining. And man, so that route, I spent a lot of time there and mimicking his practice swing. And I asked him this after the round, I think in the bunker, as I was recreating his shot that I executed so well the second time.
Yeah.
I had an alleyway because my clubs are much shorter. I have a normal length 9-iron. I was gonna suck it inside. I could get under the trees and I could approach it and try to hook one, cover the bunker, and scoot it up to the green. And I asked him if his single length iron and it had any effect over being able to hit that shot. And he said, I couldn't, given the length of my club and how upright his irons are. I mean, they're the most upright iron possible. So he couldn't, he had to make contact with those trees. And when he's making those practice swings, I was just thinking, I don't want to see a leaf fall off.
A leaf fall, right? I was thinking the same thing. He took a practice swings where he hit the leaves a couple times, and I'm like, all it's going to take is one piece of debris falling down out of there, and this guy's got a penalty, and now the U.S. Open's getting decided by a penalty. And I was the exact same way. I'm sitting there just kind of, that's not the way you want this tournament to be decided. And well, thankfully, it didn't happen.
I know, but I mean, magnolia trees are a little bit firmer, and so I raised this question. Like when I'm in a situation like that, I try to go find a similar tree, or if it's a lie, I try to go find a similar lie way away from my ball, make some practice swings. But there's no other magnolia trees around there, and if he went to the other side of that magnolia tree and made a couple practice swings, since it's the same tree, would it have been a penalty? And if he had gone and tried to recreate that somewhere else, I think since it's the same tree, it would have.
I really don't know. I think that would be into the gray area a little bit there with the USGA. I think if it's not affecting your particular shot, then it's probably not going to be a penalty. But man, I didn't want that tournament to be decided by something like that. Thankfully, again, it didn't happen.
And the way that route was running, I mean, it was not affecting his heel of his club.
Yeah.
It was far enough away. He had enough relief from that. But what it did was, and it was kind of similar to the shot he hit on 8, where he couldn't pitch it back out to the fairway because it was running against him. And he hit this shot on 8, which I couldn't believe he hit it. He hit this low cutting iron and got it behind the green and somehow got it up and down to that back left flag. Was the most unbelievable pitch shot I think I've seen him hit. And then he did it again on 10. It was incredible. So the way that route was running on 18, it was affecting the easiest pitch out to the widest part of the fairway to leave him 110 yards or so. He couldn't make good contact, and he couldn't run the risk of it running through. So he was trying to skirt the bunker like we saw Rory do, and it just came out a little bit funny and squirted into that bunker. And I mean, I haven't looked up the data yet. I just haven't had the time, but I can't imagine there were too many balls in a US Open in that bunker. That's like the one place, if you're out of position, you would never, ever want to leave it.
They talked on coverage, and I can't remember if they said 1 or 2 the entire week up and down out of that front bunker. It was either 1 or 2. I'm going to guess they went that. What's that? Sorry?
They were even in that bunker, 1 or 2.
No, 1 or 2 that got the ball up and down out of that bunker. I can't imagine there were a ton of balls in there, but still, I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 guys that got it up and down there, but the number was very, very small. And I mean, how often have we listened to golf or watched golf on TV, and every single commentator to a man says, what is the most difficult shot in golf? It's a 50-yard bunker shot.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, this guy's got a 50-yard bunker shot to try and win the US Open.
I mean, that whole back nine was just screaming a Rory Bryson playoff, and to the point where, I knew it was going to delay my night getting home a little bit, but I think I was rooting for it as a fan too. Since the USGA's gone to the two hole aggregate playoff, we haven't seen it yet. I mean, the last
Well,
playoff in a US Open was Rocco and Tiger in
yeah.
2008. It's been 16 years since we've had a playoff in a US Open. I think everybody was feeling that.
Oh, very much so. And then there's a camera on Rory in scoring there, in player scoring. And after he sees Bryson shot, he kind of puffs up a little bit and looks at it. I mean, he knows that Bryson's now got 50 yards out of a bunker. He's thinking, hang on, there's a good chance I might win this outright, or I might be in a playoff.
Yeah, I mean, you chunk it, come up short of the green. I mean, it's doable, but at the same time, under that pressure to force a playoff to have to get it up and down for bogey, or if it goes too far and goes over the back of the green, I mean, that's an impossible up and I know because I hit it there yesterday with my second shot. I hit it over the green, had to take relief from the cart path, but it's brutal from over the back of that green. And Bryson just executed it perfectly, left himself 3 feet 11 inches underneath the hole, right to left putt, under all that pressure with, I think he even said it, like that is his least favorite shot in golf is the 60-yard fairway bunker shot.
When it's all said and done, where do you think that shot goes down in the history of, clutch shots, whatever you want to call it?
I mean, I've got to put it up there really high, and I can't off the top of my head right now. I mean, I think, man, Xander Schauffele's shot 18 of the PGA Championship. His second shot when his feet were in the bunker, his ball was out, and he hit that 4-iron up there short left to the perfect spot. I mean, that was a really clutch shot because he could have lost the tournament with that had it gone someplace different. But Bryson's to hit it to that distance was as clutch as it gets. Do you have any examples of shots you think were more clutch?
I don't know about more clutch. I mean, I can think of a couple. There was that Mickelson flop out of the thick rough at Bolter's Roll to like a foot where he gave it the fist pump. That was
Yeah.
clutch.
Webb Simpson Olympic Club on 18.
Webb Simpson Olympic, but I think all of those kind of paled in comparison to the difficulty of this shot that Bryson had. I mean, again, there was so much that could have gone wrong. He could have hit it where you hit your first one over there in the clubhouse very, very easily. I mean, that's just catch it a couple grooves low and it's gone. I mean, you're standing there and it's one of those you're thinking, do I want to pick it? Do I want to splash it? Do I want to fat it? And I mean, well, he got it spot on, obviously.
And so playing golf there Monday with 3 people from Pinehurst, Tom Pashley, who sort of runs the entire resort, Eric Kuster, who's in charge of sales and marketing, and Matt Barksdale, who's in charge of golf operations. They're all very concerned now that every single person that comes and plays Pinehurst for the first time is going to throw a ball down there. And they were talking to the point even where they may have to plexiglass the railing so that people aren't just sculling it into the Deuce, the restaurant right there on the other side of the veranda, and just breaking windows left and right because it's going to become a spot now. And I saw it yesterday. We teed off at 11:40 and walked up, and Pashley wanted to see the spot, so I walked in and put a big circle in the sand where he hit it from. And I mean, everybody's going to come. There are footprints everywhere. I think it's going to be like a destination on that golf course to come and take a look, to the point where, I mean, I don't know how you'd put a plaque in a bunker like the Hogan plaque at Marion in the middle of that fairway. But I mean, something's got to be done to memorialize that spot.
I think they will. It might not be a plaque, but I think there will certainly be something. It's one of those shots that earned it. It earned some sort of distinction along those lines. Again, I don't know how you put a plaque there, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's something that's going to memorialize that. It's again, it certainly deserves it, and I understand where they're coming from, wanting to put plexiglass there. It is such a hard shot, and your everyday golfer will be blading something right onto that back porch.
Yes, they absolutely will. I mean, I saw some awful golf from the other holes yesterday. People hitting it in positions that I couldn't imagine. All right, so we get up on the green. Bryson's got that putt, and Matthew Pavon lags it up there, and I'm screaming like, "Why isn't he finishing? Why isn't he finishing? He's got a huge putt. The crowd's going to go crazy. Bryson's going to go crazy if he makes this." But I thought, like, when you look at it and think about it from a player's perspective, he didn't want to give Bryson the read. It was on the same line. He was protecting the field. And I mean, I know people are probably talking, and they were booing, chanting USA that he didn't finish, but I think it was the right move, with a day or so to digest it, that Pavon didn't hit that putt. What was going through your mind when he put the spot on it?
Oh, 100%. I think he did everything right. I mean, hypothetically, if Bryson's got a 2-shot lead or whatever, then Pavon's going to tap that ball in. I agree 100%. He did the right thing. He certainly should not have gone up there and tapped that in. It is protecting the integrity of the field. He was almost on exactly the same line Bryson was. I didn't really think that I didn't give it that much thought at all.
I think a lot of people did, and me included, but when reflecting upon the fact that he didn't want to give Bryson the line, and Aaron Oberholzer early in the week on Live From had kind of said that Bryson DeChambeau is the golf equivalent to WWE wrestling, and I think there was no better example of that than when he made that putt and his celebration with just this raw, just massive testosterone infused celebration. I like that. He is the WWE of professional golf, and that's why it's so refreshing to have him back and in the hunt in these last two majors, and really the Masters. He had a nice finish at the Masters as well, holing out on Saturday on 18 for birdie from 80 yards. Like, he's entertaining.
If you're who's the U.S. President's Cup captain? I'm drawing a blank. Jim Furyk?
Yes.
Is Bryson? Is he on that team already? Are you penciling Bryson in there right now?
It's a PGA Tour. It's a PGA Tour event. It's a PGA Tour run event, and there will be no live players on either the international or U.S. team side. I think that's already been announced, especially on the Mike Weir front. I think the deal hasn't gotten far enough along to even reconsider that. Who knows? We've got a couple months until September. Who knows if that's still going to be the case? But as of now, no, I don't. I think it's impossible for anybody, no matter how good they are, to be on that team if they're a member of Live.
Really? So that eliminates even captain's picks. You cannot pick somebody as a captain's pick.
Yeah, it does. As far as my understanding, and I could be wrong on that, but as far as my understanding, I'm 99% sure that unless something dramatically changes with the structure in the month or so leading up, I don't think there's any way for a member of Live Golf to play on either side, because the Ryder Cup's run by the PGA of America and the DP World Tour,
Yeah.
and the President's Cup is run exclusively by the PGA Tour on both sides. And it's interesting though, Brendon, and you may know this better. I mean, international team, do you have to be a member of the PGA Tour to be on that international team?
Nope.
Okay, so
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah, I just think given the, I as of now, I'm very close to positive that it's a no, but who knows? And on that same topic, do you think that finish and Bryson winning, do you think that's going to bring the tour and Live closer to a deal? I mean, it would have to, like, how great that finish was, and how much the fans want this to happen, and ultimately it's about the fans. I think it had to have moved us closer to a deal.
I think it does. I think it moves us closer. I'd be guessing if I knew how much closer, like how much weight that's going to carry. Obviously all discussions are behind closed doors right now. It does sound like things are progressing. Again, we're guessing as to how much, but yes, seeing things like that, it has to make the powers that be think to themselves, like, we need to get something done.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's Cam Smith. I did a walk and talk with him on Tuesday. He's just such a good dude, so good for the game. Uh,
Yeah.
I just think there's there's just so many little details. Like, how can you welcome them back without a completely different structure? Because it's these guys took a lot of money to go play and to basically, like, really damage the product of the PGA Tour. And so I think a lot of players, especially in those those higher echelon players that are kind of making the decisions on the board right now, they don't feel like that they can just be welcomed back with open arms without any sort of penalty. So I think that's kind of the finer details of getting these players back is holding things up a little bit. And I completely understand that. I mean, if I was loyal to the tour and turned down $100 million contract, I don't necessarily feel like it's the right way, but we don't need to go. When we get more information, we can go down
Well,
there.
yeah, it's going to be like re-entry when you've been on a 5-day golf trip and you come back home. It's not going to be without any bumps along the road there.
Let's just talk about a couple other players. I thought Patrick Cantlay, I mean, the knock on him is anytime he's had a top 10 in a major, it's been a backdoor top 10 to the point where I think some podcasts call him a house cat. He's always entering he's coming into the top 10 in a major from the back door. I thought he played really well. Amazing how he just hung around. Seemed like he was out of position, not playing his best stuff, but hung around. I thought Matthew Pavon hung in there incredibly well. His first time in a major like that. And now he's played really well. He won at Torrey Pines. He's really contended at Pebble. Who knows where he would have ended up had that we've been able to play a fourth round. So I'm very impressed by those guys. Very impressed by Tony Finau too.
Yeah. No, Cantlay played well. He did. He, as you say, he hung around all week. Man, he's such a tough guy to pull for. He just doesn't give you much. It's boring watching him. Like, I'd love to see him act like he cared that he was there or something. Pavon's fun to watch. I think Matthew Pavon is this guy's good. He's underrated. I think he's all the way up to top. I think he's 24th in the world right now. Jeez. Done it very, very quietly. He's had some big results on some big events on some tough golf courses. Tony Finau's getting closer. He's starting to figure out the putt a little bit. Starting to make some putts now when they really count. Some putts under the gun. I think we got to talk a little bit about Scheffler. We haven't seen this smaller odds going into the week to win since Tiger. I think he was plus 300 going into the week. Just a prohibitive favorite. And Scotty couldn't figure those green surfaces out. Hit the ball plenty good enough to contend in this event. Just could not figure out the green surfaces. I think at one point during our coverage on Sunday, he was the worst putter in the field. They're tough greens. They're greens that you play a few more times, that you actually learn them some. And Scotty he couldn't. You saw him with hands on hips. You saw all kinds of looks. We saw frustration, a ton of frustration from him as the week moved along, and he just never sorted it out.
I think that goes to lack of preparation. I mean, he played Memorial the week before, and that weekend at Memorial, as Jack tries to do every year, we had good weather. It was firm. It was brutal. I mean, to the point, like on Sunday at Memorial 16, you couldn't even go at that flag. The closest you could take on all the risk possible, try to hit a big hook in there, and the closest you could get was probably 25 feet, and that would be taking on way more risk than it was worth. I just think the stress of him being in contention all the time. And I saw him Monday night out there at Pinehurst. He was walking the course with Ted Scott and just chipping around the greens, hitting a few putts. He had never been there before. I think he had been invited to come by Bob Dedman to stay in his house and play a couple rounds while the course was closed. He could have had the whole place to himself. But, I mean, Scotty just had a baby. Yeah. He's played a ton of golf. He was, I mean, everything that happened to him at the PGA Championship, like he didn't have a lot of downtime. And I think the stress of that Memorial win was just unfair a little bit, that these guys are forced to play these huge events the week before a major and really affect their prep. And I know Jack Nicklaus was not particularly excited about the Memorial being the week before the US Open, because Jack never liked to play the week before US Open. And he wants guys to struggle and to test them at the highest level at his event when given the weather conditions they had. And so I think for Scotty, like, I'm not worried about him at all. I think he's fine. I think he'll probably still go into Troon as a favorite. I think Bryson, Xander, and Rory. I mean, we're kind of getting to the point where we've got this big four right now. I mean, Xander has never finished outside the top 15 in the U.S. Open, and like I didn't even hear his name much. I was on the call for featured groups on Friday for his group of Rory, him, and Scheffler. And I mean, it was, he just didn't seem to have it. And then all of a sudden he has a nice Saturday, Sunday, and he finishes where he did. So, I mean, very impressive performance by him. But yeah, with Scheffler, man, I just think he was cooked emotionally, physically, didn't have the time to prepare and learn this golf course. Because, I mean, as you know, Brendon, I think the more you play Pinehurst number 2, the more you figure it out. And it's not something you can get done with walking 18, chipping and putting, It's not something you can get done with 9 and 9 on Tuesday, Wednesday. You need to play this golf course over and over. And I think the fact that he didn't come in, and I get it, he had a baby.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking him for
Yeah.
not coming in. I just think that it exposed his naivety for this golf course. And I'll give you one example of that. And that was Friday on 5 going at the 5th green from 253 yards. And he hit it into the front of the green. It looked like it was going to be really good. It rolls into the native area left and he makes double. And it's like, man, had you played here a couple times knowing that pin, maybe you even lay up from 256 front. But if you miss it from 256 front, you're missing it right. You don't miss it left of that green. And I think Rory had played there in 14, but I think a lot of these guys, like, it was so demanding. The practice rounds were so slow that a lot of them didn't get the normal prep that they would need for this exacting of a venue.
Yeah, when I saw the schedule and I saw that it went Memorial, US Open, Travelers, and Memorial and Travelers were both signature events, I didn't understand that one at all. It didn't make any sense to me. Memorial is in essence like playing a major championship golf course. It's one of the hardest regular PGA Tour events out there. It's going to take a bunch out of you when you're in contention, and I couldn't agree more with you. I think Scotty was tired. He was tired from the start. You could see there, as you said, just the 9-hole practice rounds or just the walking of the golf course with a wedge and a putter. I agree with doing that. Sure, the difficulty of that golf course is around the greens and stuff, but I think you still need a little bit more prep than that. He wasn't fully prepared, and this is a guy that typically leaves no stone unturned. He typically will show up at an event and he has done everything that's necessary to be ready to tee it up on a Thursday morning, and he just didn't have the time or the energy to do that this week because of the way the schedule's worked out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm completely with you, but I'm really looking forward to Troon. It's been an awesome major championship season where, I know Scotty kind of blew away the Masters, but the PGA had a great finish. This one had a great finish. Anything else you want to talk about from the week that stuck out to you?
No, I just want to reiterate one more time how impressed I was with the way the USGA set everything up and the way they handled everything. I think they've sorted things out. I think that John Bodenhammer is the right man for the job. I listened to him. We had like a little not a players meeting, but a meeting before we went out on Wednesday, and he came in there and gave a speech. And this is a guy that I'd like to be behind and like to work for. He's a guy that's got it spot on, and I think him and then the setup committee got everything exactly right.
Yeah, I spent quite a bit of time with Scott Langley out on the golf course, and a guy you and I know well, played professional golf for a while, almost won his first PGA Tour start as a rookie. He and Russell Henley there at the Sony Open. So I think since they hired Jason Gore and now Langley's taken his spot, I think they're making the right decisions. Mike Wan has been a great leader as well. Yeah. Jeff Hall, Fred Propal, the president. Mm-hmm. The USGA had a pretty bad reputation of just being bullies and trying to make players look foolish, and they've really done a good thing. The only negative thing I'll say is that when Mike Wan was in the trophy presentation, he started off trying to be funny, and he swung and he missed. He said 3 things Pinehurst does well: great hospitality, great setup on a golf course, and great humidity. And I think all the people in the grandstands that have been sitting in there for 6+ hours were like, they're like, yeah, buddy, you've been inside the air conditioning all day. We're not laughing at that. Why don't you just give Bryson the trophy? We want to see him. And Bryson walked around, and I mean, my caddy yesterday said he touched the trophy. And so Bryson walked through the crowd of the public people, the public patrons not having these hospitality suites, and walked through with the trophy, and he let all these people put their hands on it. So I thought he was an incredibly gracious champion.
Yeah, he's a man of the people.
He's a man of the people. We'll take us out of here, Brendon.
Well, thanks everybody for listening. It's always fun being with you, and we hope to see you soon. That's Johnson Wagner. I'm Brendon DeYoung. We are the Wagyu Filet Show.